Okay, so we're up to Ois Vav. The Rebbe explained before that the reason why the Torah starts with Breishis, even though the Torah itself is the Hamshocha of the Oir Habligvul. Maise Breishis is Gevul, so because the ultimate goal of the Hamshocha from Torah, that it should come down into a level of uh, it should come down in a level of gevul, so that the nisan should impact also the level of gevul. So now the Rebbe is going to explain this uh, a little bit more in more details. Vav biur ha'inyan bepratis yaser, to understand the idea in more detail. Yuvon al pi mashekosu bekama derushim. We can understand this based on what is written in many Maimorim, several Maimorim. Be'inyan lo hoyo tzorich lahaschil es ha'toira ela ma'chodesh hazeh lochem u'matam posach bebreshis. On this subject matter that we quoted from the Chazal, that the Torah should not have started only from the posuk HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem, the first mitzvah. Why did the Torah start with Breishis? So it says in the Maimorim, the Is Obei Mek HaMelech B'tchilosei, because we find in the Sefer Emek HaMelech in the beginning, Shebrias v'hishavus ha'olamois hoiso alidei hatzimtzum. The creation and the worlds being brought into being was through a tzimtzum, through a restriction. That's the way the world was created. There needed to be a tzimtzum in order for the creation of the world. What does it mean? What was the tzimtzum? The inyan hatzimtzum, the idea of the tzimtzum. In this case, tzimtzum arishin. There are various different tzimtzumim later on. The very first tzimtzum in order for there to be a world. Who shaha'oir shehayir tchilo nis'alem legamri. That the light that shone in the beginning, first there was the light that filled the entire cholol. The entire place was full with the light of Hashem. But then there needed to be a tzimtzum so that the light that shined in the beginning, nis'alam legamri, was totally hidden. That's the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum was that there's no more light in this space. That way, it became a hollow and an empty space for the worlds to stand. Remove the oir. So now, once there is no oir, there's a place for the world. We can create the world in that hollow, in that hollow and empty space. And what's the purpose of the tzimtzum? Why did we remove the oir? Ubirday shal yidei hatoiro mitzvahs yiyeh hagilui doirin sof gamboilois. So, in order that later on through Torah mitzvahs, that revelation of the Ein Sof now will be in the Olamis. So once you created the Olamis, so now we can be mamshich the Ein Sof in Olamis. Because before there was the tzimtzum, there was no Olamis. We could not bring down an Eure in Oilemos. The Koidem had Tzimtzum prior to the Tzimtzum. Kishahoya Eure in Sof Memale Mokim HaCholol. When the Eure in Sof filled the entire hollow place, meaning before there was a hollow place and a place for the world to stand, and it was just filled with the Eure Sof, was filled the Mokim HaCholol, Lo hoya efsher liyos mitzias ha'elois. There could not possibly be the entity of world. World could not be without a tzimtzum. V'lo hoya hagilu ba'elomis. So then the gilu would not be in oilomis. In order to be oilomis, we need tzimtzum. And once you have the oilomis, you can be mamshich the oil into the oilomis. V'idei tzimtzum nischadish. Shagilu Doirin Sof Yegam Bailamis. Through the Tzimtzum, what came about, the Chidush, that the Gilu of Eirin Sof should be also in Oilamis. Now, once there was a Tzimtzum, so there was world, there was Oilamis, and now we can be Mamshich the oil into the Oilamis. So basically, what Torah mitzvahs are mamshich now, the chiddush, that they can mamshich the oir in sof into the elmas. Move on. So from this we understand, we say to Mizu, no, there's an additional point here, that when you bring down, you're not just bringing down the light you had before. You're not just bringing down the Ein Sof that was before into the world, but you're actually bringing a higher level. He say to Mizu, Shal Yidei Zeh Yegam Hagilui, through this process of the Tzimtzum, and now that you're Mamshich, the Gilui, the revelation is the Pnimius Ein Sof, the inner of the Ein Sof. Shalemailo gam mehaoir sheheyir lifnei hatzimtzum, which is higher also than the light that shined before the tzimtzum. The light that comes down after the tzimtzum into the world is from the light that is even higher than the light lifnei hatzimtzum. You get the pnimius of Ein Sof. So from this we understand, just like it is with the kavonas hatzimtzum, shal derech hazeh hu benegeya lezeh sheberitzoynei nosna lahem. Similar to this is that it relates that his will, he gave it to them. When the Eibishter gave it to them, was not, it's like the tzimtzum. He gave it to them in order to give it to us. Just like we said, by the Ein Sof can't be into the world, it needs a tzimtzum, and then it can give it, then the earth can come down. So derech zeh, b'rtzoynei nosna lahem, shekavone bozeh, what does it mean? Melachatchila hi. To begin with, b'chdei sheyiyeh b'rtzoynei not lo mahem v'nosna lanu. So that it should be that willingly, that the Eibishter took it and gave it to us. V'al yidei zeh, shenachal as goyim nepcha le'eretz Yisrael, through the fact that it was an inheritance that belonged to the goyim, and it turned around into becoming Eretz Yisrael, hinai lis v'yoser. That's a very great level. If the Eibishter would have given Eretz Yisrael lechatchila to Yidden, not given it to the Goyim and then taken it and given to us, it would not have that same milah. It would not have that same holiness, the same Giluyim like later, like it happened. First, it had to go to the Goyim. And then from the Goyim, it transferred to the Yidden. And that's the way you get the higher level of the Gilui in Eretz Yisrael. Vayidei shelemdim batoiro Breishis Bora Elikim. By when we learn in the Torah about Breishis Bora Elikim, and this limud in Torah, Shebriya So'ilam is Hoysal Yidei Hatzimtzum Vahelem Deshem Elikim. Breishis Bora Elikim, that the world was created through the Tzimtzum, through the Helem of Shem Elikim that blocked the level of Tzimtzum. Maschil mit Tzimtzum Orishin, beginning with the very first Tzimtzum. When you learn about it, Ayidei Zeh Megalim Soid HaTzimtzum. Then, through this, when you learn about the Tzimtzum, when you learn Breishis Bora Elikim, you reveal the secret of the Tzimtzum. Shehat Kavonas HaTzimtzum B'Shvil HaGilui. You reveal that the purpose, the intent of the Tzimtzum is because of the revelation. The Torah that we learn is Megale, that the Breishis Bora Elikim is not really Tzimtzum, but it's a Tzimtzum B'Shvil HaGilui. That's when, because it becomes Torah. Val derech zeh, this whole idea of all these tzimtzumim are related. Al derech zeh hu b'miyut hayereach. The tzimtzum that the yoreach has been diminished, which is a kavona. The kavona is for the gilui. Chet eitz adamit to become bigger. Chet eitz hadas chulu is for the person to become higher. This is all related. All the level of tzimtzumim are related to kuyudua, as it's known, shahat tzimtzum. That's talking about the tzimtzum creation of the world. Ushviras hakelim de toyu, and the breaking vessel of toyu. This is the other umiyat hayereach, and the diminishing of the moon, the chet eitz hadas, and the sin of the sheyachim zelazeh are all connected. Basically, all the tzimtzumim, all the miyutim, all the sins, it's all for an inner purpose. It's to bring out the higher level, the level of teshuvah, to bring the world of tikkun. In all of these levels, the kavaneh of the miyut is not for the miyut, but it's actually to bring out the higher level. So, dal yidei shalomdim batoira inyonim elu. When you learn in the Torah about these matters, the miyut hayadeach, the chet eitz hadas, Torah brings the gilui in the tzimtzum. Nizgala hakavona pnimis shobahem shehoya b'shvil hagilui. When you learn the Torah, then you reveal the inner intent in all these occurrences that is b'shvil the gilui. That the reason for Elikim Breishis Bora is for the purpose of gilui. Everything that happened, even though it looks like a tzimtzum, it is a tzimtzum, but it has the purpose is the gilui. So, Torah and mitzvahs, basically, they reveal that it's not really tzimtzum, but the purpose is gilui. Zay. That this that the Torah writes the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis mishum koyach masav higid la'amay losis lahem nachlas goyim. And the Torah tells the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis. Koyach masav higid la'amay losis lahem nachlas goyim. So we should know what to tell for the nations of the world. Seems almost it doesn't belong in Torah, But the Torah gives it to you so you know what to say. But the Rebbe says, how could you make a change in Torah just because we're trying to, if Torah itself is bli gvul, why are we talking about gvul here just to caution us? And the Rebbe explained before, because the purpose of Torah is to bring into the world. But the Rebbe explains now even more, because Torah reveals that the tzimtzum is not really a tzimtzum, so it's not a change in Torah. Ein ze shinui chas v'sholem ba'Torah. The fact that the Torah had to write also the Ma'aseh Bereshis is not a change in the Torah, something different. שבכדי שידעו ישראל להושיב לאומות העולם, לכן נכתבו בתורה עניונים אחרים חס ושלום שאינם תורה. So that in order the Yidden to know what to answer to the nation of the world, so the Torah wrote other matters, God forbid, that are not Torah, just because we're trying to answer. כי זה שהעניין דמעשה בראשיס הוא צמצום לשם אליקים. Because the fact that there is Ma'aseh Bereshis, which is the lower level, this is a level of Elikim, that is Tzimtzum, that is the creation of the world, that's Teva, everything, the Shem Elikim. V'lochein einoi shayich l'Torah, shehi hagilu the Shem Havaya. And that's why, presumably in the beginning, our first thought is, Bereshis bar Elikim, which is Teva, which is Elikim, is not the Chodesh Hazeh Lochem, which is godly, which is bli gvul. So why do we stick into bli gvul? We stick in gvul. Why do we stick in Teva into Torah, which is the Gilui and Sofa bli gvul? It's not we stuck it in. Ki zeh hu kemoi shehu mitzad atzmei. If you look at the Bereshis Bar Elikim, without looking what the purpose of it is, it seems like Bereshis Bar Elikim is nature, is Tava, is Shem Elikim, Bereshis Bar Elikim. That is on its own. The world was created that way. Lifnei Hagilui di Yitzias Mitzrayim Matan Torah. Before the revelation of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah, which we revealed the part of bli gvul. Avol le'achrei shehoya hagilui di yitzias Mitzrayim Matan Torah. But after there was the Gilui Yitzias Mitzrayim Matan Torah, HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem, came that Chidush, the level of the Shem Havaya, Tzirufim of the Shem Havaya. So v'ha'inyan the Ma'aseh Bereshis kosu b'Torah. So therefore, then the idea of Ma'aseh Bereshis is written in the Torah is legalis hakavona hapnimis shel hatzimtzum. That is to reveal the inner purpose, the inner intent of the tzimtzum. B'rdei she'al yidei zeh yiyeh gilui nai le'yoseh. There was a tzimtzum that there should be a greater gilui, as the Rebbe explained that later on, after the tzimtzum, the gilui in olam comes from the pnimius and sof, even higher than what before. Hare gilui hakavona hapnimis, the hatzimtzum. So this revelation of the inner intent of the tzimtzum, hu k'may kol ha'inyonim shebeTorah. Then it becomes like all matters of Torah. The fact that we're talking about Ma'aseh Bereshis, the fact that we're talking about Elikim, that's not a contradiction to the level of Torah, which is bli gvul, because the whole Torah discusses all limited matters. The even though it dresses up in physical matters, hem Torah. It's all Torah. Torah talks about physical matters. It's still Torah. Chochmosei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu shelamayla me'olam, which means it's the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is higher than world. The Torah, which is higher than world, speaks about all matters of the world, which means that it's the wisdom of Hashem, which is higher in the world, that comes down to the world. And the fact that it descended and dressed up in physical matters, that is in order to draw down the bligvul of Torah also below. So that's the idea of all matters of Torah. So Breishis bara likim, which originally looks tzimtzum, but when you learn in Torah, you realize after HaChodesh HaZelochem, you learn about it. Then when you learn Breishis bara, you realize that the tzimtzum was in order to get a greater Gilui Nailiyos, a greater Gilui. So then, why we're being mamshich is so that in order to be able to mamshich, like I said before, in the olam from lifnei hatzimtzum, and in this case to be mamshich from HaChodesh HaZelochem, that the Torah reveals that in the olam, in the gevul, you're mamshich the bli gevul the Torah. Ches. Similar, it's also as it relates to Tishrei and Nisan. Shetachlis hakavona behabriya de Tishrei, that the ultimate purpose in the Bria of Tishrei, Breishis bara, that's when the world was called Sha'oz Nivra Ha'olam b'medido v'hagbola. The world was created with a measure and a limit. That's Breishis. That's Tishrei. Ubichdei shalidei ha'avoda the Torah mitzvahs. That is in order that through the service of Torah mitzvahs, yiyeh boy gilui hablikvul denisan, so that in Tishrei should be the revelation of the unlimited of Nisan HaChodesh HaZelochem. So Tishrei, just like the world is Breishis bara likim, in order to learn and to be mamshich, and just like the creation of the world, the same thing is with Tishrei and Nisan. Tishrei, blikvul, is created in order to bring down Nisan into it. V'yesh lekasher zeim hamevur b'mokem achar be'inyan beis hadeyas. The Rebbe says we can also connect this, tie this to what's explained elsewhere with regards to the two opinions. Bizman habriya, the creation, when the world was created. So we have two opinions. Das Rabbi Lezer, the opinion of Lezer Shabbat Tishrei Nivra Ha'olam, that Tishrei the world was created, which is Chofhei Elul. Actually, the man was created on Rosh Hashanah, but on Tishrei, but the world Chofhei Elul. But that's the opinion of Tishrei. But that's Rabbi Yeshua Shabbat Nisan Nivra Ha'olam, and Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is that the world was created on Nisan, which is Chavhei Adar. So it's explained she'elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, that really they're both the words of the living God, that they're both true. There is, on one level, the world was created on Tishrei like Rabbi Lezer, and on one level, the world was created like Rabbi Yeshua Nisan. That what? Elo sheben Nisan olo b'machshava livrei. In Nisan, it entered Hashem's thought. Hashem had the thought to create. But v'habriya b'poyel hoyso b'tishrei shalachrei Nisan. But the Bria in actually followed the machshava in Tishrei, not shalachrei Nisan. In other words, not Tishrei and then Nisan, but Nisan was the kavanah, machshava, to create. That was the beginning. the thought, and then it came Tishrei. Okay, so Ba'pi hayadua shahakavone v'hatachlis shel asiya hi hamachshove shel lefoneo. Based on what we know, that the intent and the purpose of what you do is the thought that you have before. So if Maise b'machshava techila, we say, it doesn't bring it down here, but the end and the purpose of the doing, what comes the Maise is first the machshava that preceded it. So the Rebbe says yesh loymar, so we can say the zesha machshava livre sa'ilam hoitzo b'nisan. Then we're saying the thought to create was in Nisan hakavona bazei. What it means is shahakavona v'hatachlis the bria sa'ilam b'tishrei. That the purpose, the intent, and the tachlis the bria sa'ilam b'tishrei medida v'hagbola, that this limitation and measured of creation, who sheyiyeh boy hagilui de Nisan shalamaylam hagbola, that it should be the revelation of Nisan, which is higher than hagbola. The Eibishter's b'machshove, he created the Nisan because Nisan is the actual goal for Tishrei, that to bring Nisan into Tishrei, that in Tishrei we should bring the revelation of Nisan, which is Hayd Nagbola. That's the Machshava. Elo shebichdei shetushlam hakavone. But in order for this intent of Nisan to shine Bligvul in Gavul, it needs to first go and create. It can't be there unless created. Shechdei shetushlam hakavone shegam behagavul yiyagila Bligvul. That also in the Gavul, in Tishrei, should be the revelation of Bligvul. Hoyso habriya bepoyel. So actual creation was be'oifen shebegilui loy hoyo nirgosh bo hakavona. So it was in a way that openly you did not see the kavona. You had to create the world in order to create a modu to mugbal. The world originally created not with seeing the kavona that it's really to bring in the bligvul. That's the way it was created limited. Otherwise, it wouldn't be limited. So the kavana was hidden. And then when we do Torah mitzvahs, nimshach ba'olam ha'mugbal hagilu da'olam sof ha'bligbal. So then, in this world that is limited, you bring down the gilu of the Ein Sof Habligvul, and this started the Ascholas Gilu. The Gilu ends in Tishrei, in the limitation. You bring down the Bligvul, the Ascholas Gilu Hoya B'Tzias Mitzrayim. When did this revelation of Torah mitzvahs, the Ein Sof HaBlikvul, that started with the exodus of Egypt? HaChodsh HaZalochem. So the Mele, the Hamshocha, so basically the Tishrei is, the Rebbe brings it out now, Tishrei is the physical creation of the intent of Nisan. Nisan, the Eibishter intention, is to bring about the purpose of the world, not just Bligvul. What's added over here, that in Nisan, it wasn't just Nisan is Bligvul. Nisan was Bligvul, but with the kavaneh for Tishrei, that to Bligvul, to bring down the Bligvul in Tishrei, in the Medida of Agbola. So then that's why there was Tishrei, created the world in a limited way, and then later on through Nisan, which the Torah mitzvahs was given then, were mamshich the blikvul into the gvul, and that's remains in the level of Tishrei to be mamshich and to be megala the purpose. So therefore, as we will see, it continues to be, as the Rebbe will explain further, the month remain because we have to have Tishrei, because you can't have the Gilui from Nisan if you don't have Tishrei, because the purpose of Nisan is to have the Gilui in Tishrei, as we will continue to learn Be'ezras Hashem tomorrow. Okay, we'll leave it over here, and we'll continue.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.